Hi, my name is Sylvia Gilrovietz, and this is,
Ariana Delatorre.
and we're doing our final project on phonological awareness and reading outcomes of children who speak African American English.
So, Standard American English, or Mainstream American English, is a socially preferred dialect used in the United States, and it can be found in Standard American writing in settings such as schools, the workplace, and in government. Non mainstream American English is any dialect which is not conform to Standard American English. But these dialects are just as rule governed and systematic as Standard American English, but are often socially stigmatized. One of the most frequently spoken non standard American English dialect is African American English, which is spoken by individuals throughout the US and is going to be one of the main dialects we speak about in our project.
The purpose of our presentation and our research question involves whether African American English usage affects phonological awareness skills and whether it affects later reading outcomes and literacy skills of school-age children. Phonological awareness is the ability to attend to, think about, and manipulate speech, sound, and words. For example, rhyming, syllable awareness, onset awareness, segmenting, blending, and manipulation of sounds and words are all examples of phonological awareness skills. Phonological awareness has been found to contribute significantly to literacy development. If children entering school have acquired early phonological awareness skills, they will be better able to learn later phonological awareness components. Strong phonological awareness skills are a foundation for later literacy skills.
Strong literacy skills are essential to the academic success of children. And according to ASHA, literacy is a person's ability to read and to write. Reading and writing are important to help function in school, on the job, and in society. Reading and literacy is a strong foundation for reading acquisition, which includes deeper phonological awareness skills as well as blending and segmenting words.
Pearson, Vellman, Brine, and Charco set out a study to examine the patterns of phonological development along African American English speaking students ages 4 through 12 who are acquiring mainstream American English in school. 537 typically developing African American English speakers and 317 typically developing mainstream American English speakers participated in the study, and they were ages 4 through 12 years old. The dialect-sensitive language test was used to assess consonant segments and clusters in mainstream American English in final and initial position of words. The proficiency criterion was 90%. African American English speakers did not reach criterion of the voice TH sound until age 12 in both initial and final position of words. This was about 7 years later than the mainstream American English speakers reached the criterion. All other word initial consonants were acquired in line with mainstream American English students. Mainstream American English speakers across ages had reached mastery earlier than African American English speakers in final positions of words. African American English speakers achieved mastery of initial clusters earlier than mainstream American English speakers, but mainstream American English speakers acquired mastery of final clusters earlier than African American English speakers. The main conclusion to the study was that phonological development differs in African American English speakers compared to mainstream American English speakers. Mitri and Terry conducted a study to examine African American English students' performance on a phonological awareness task and the relationship between dialect use, phonological awareness, and reading. 119 African American English speaking students, grades kindergarten through second grade, participated in the study. Sentence imitation was used to assess spoken dialect use. Sound awareness subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement and a phoneme match task were used to assess phonological awareness, and the sound letter word identification subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement was used to assess vocabulary and reading skills. The results of the study found that the children who produced more African American English features performed worse on the phonological awareness and reading tasks compared to those who produced low African American English features. The conclusion of this study was that there is a relationship between dialect use and phonological awareness skills and reading skills in children. Terry conducted a study to assess children's non-mainstream American English dialect use and their knowledge about phonological representations of word pronunciations. 105 African American English speakers in grades kindergarten through second grades participated in the study, and dialect usage and knowledge measures were sentence imitation, picture naming, acceptability judgments, and pseudo word repetition tasks. Literacy skills were measured using word letter identification and sound awareness subtests of the Woodcock Johnson 3 test of achievement. And the results showed that non mainstream American English children demonstrated significant knowledge of standard American English forms. However, there was an inverse relationship between non mainstream American English use and reading skills, which was influenced by phonological awareness skills. This means that non mainstream American English speakers have knowledge of standard American English forms, but they are not using them correctly. The dialect mismatch causes African American English speakers to have decreased phonological awareness and reading skills. Terry, Connor, Thomas Tate, and Love investigated the relationship between non-mainstream American English use, literacy skills, and school environment. They studied relationships between dialectal variation and vocabulary, phonological awareness, and word reading skills, which were compared to school context and school economic status, socioeconomic status. 617 typically developing first graders were used, and the diagnostic evaluation of test variation screening test was used to assess dialectal variation. Sound awareness, picture vocabulary, and letter word identification subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement was used to measure receptive vocabulary, phonological awareness, and word reading skills. The results found that there was a nonlinear relationship between dialect variation and word reading and vocabulary, affected by school socioeconomic status, but a significant negative relationship was found between dialectal variation and phonological awareness skills, which were not affected by school socioeconomic status. This means that the word reading and vocabulary were affected by school socioeconomic status, but the phonological awareness skills were not affected by school socioeconomic status. Non-mainstream American English did contribute to low phonological awareness skills. The conclusion of this study is that there is a complex relationship between non-mainstream American English use, school context, race, and literacy skills. However, there does seem to be a direct inverse relationship between the non-mainstream American English use and phonological awareness skills.
Edwards and Rosen aimed to determine the efficacy of using a curriculum supplement with pre-kindergarten children, and they evaluated whether the supplement magnified and improved awareness of mainstream American English in preschoolers who spoke African American English. They evaluated children in 2 Head Start classrooms, and the expressive vocabulary test, the test of auditory comprehension of language, the comprehensive test of phonological processing, and the test of phonological awareness skills were administered to assess the expressive vocabulary and syntax skills of these children. The first protocol was the talk protocol, which was in the experimental classroom. And the talk protocol stood for Talking and Learning for Kindergarten Program. And this assessed morphological, phonological, and pragmatic differences between MAE and African American English. In the control classroom, they used the kindness curriculum, which promoted mindfulness and regulated self-esteem. Results indicated that the preschoolers in the experimental classroom exhibited significant improvement across all post-test measures, and the study revealed that the participants' comprehension of unambiguous words in MAE significantly improved. Terry and Connor examined whether non-mainstream American English use was decreased and whether mainstream American English use was increased by the end of kindergarten and whether this increase or decrease in dialects predicted reading skills and outcomes. And this study relied heavily on the comparisons between dialect variation and early literacy, which was shown through their discussion of the linguistic awareness / flexibility hypothesis. And this hypothesis questioned whether code switching is a metalinguistic skill that coincides with other skills which support reading acquisition and phonological awareness. Their study was a longitudinal design which included 49 children, and it looked at dialect variation, reading and phonological awareness skills, and receptive vocabulary. The Diagnostic Evaluation of Language Variation Screening test was administered to assess dialect variation. The letter word identification and sound awareness subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement were administered to assess reading and phonological awareness skills, and the Peabody Picture Vocabulary test was administered to assess receptive vocabulary. Results of their study indicated that while letter word reading and phonological awareness skills significantly increased from kindergarten to first grade, there was no relationship between these skills and a dialectal shift from AAE to Standard American English. However, the findings revealed that non-mainstream American English production decreased in use from the end of kindergarten to the end of first grade. Terry, Connor, Petzker, and Conlin researched whether increasing the use of mainstream American English in first grade helped children increase their reading gains in second grade. They chose this population because the majority of children begin to decode information and receive written instruction in the first grade. They first questioned whether changing from non-mainstream American English to mainstream American English forms a relationship between dialect use and literacy outcomes. They had a longitudinal design, and 49 children who spoke non-mainstream American English were assessed. To examine whether reading gains occurred, 3 subtests of the Woodcock-Johnson were administered to the students 3 times throughout the school year. These subtests included picture vocabulary, letter word identification, and passive comprehension. The sound awareness subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson and the DELV-S were also administered twice throughout the year. The results indicated stronger vocabulary skills and larger lexicons in first grade were greater predictors of an increase in mainstream American English usage in second grade. They also found that children who frequently used mainstream American English rather than non-mainstream American English were more likely to show improvement in the areas of letter word reading and passage comprehension. This orthographic finding is shown to correlate with a child's oral language, such as vocabulary, morphosyntactic skills, and phonological awareness. Craig, Zhang, Hensel, and Quinn widened the age gap to examine whether dialect shifting and reading achievement test scores were correlated when shifting between dialects, and whether the shift generated a difference in general oral language abilities and writing skills. They had 165 participants of typically developing African American students from 1st to 5th grade. They collected a language sample which consisted of oral and written narratives to compare frequency of AAE production, and to assess reading achievement, they administered the Gray Oral Reading Test, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, the Terra Nova, the Metropolitan Achievement Test, and the Michigan Educational Assessment Program. Results indicated that the use of African American English was related to reading achievement and the scores obtained from the assessments. The study also found a significant decrease in African American English production during the language sample in both oral and written narratives. The authors of the study suggest that students who utilize Standard American English when attending to literacy and reading will perform better on these tasks than the students who do not shift between dialects.
Our research has led us to believe that there is an inverse relationship between African American English use and phonological awareness skills. Research shows that the dialect does have an effect on the development of phonological awareness skills, and in fact, low African American English speakers perform better on phonological awareness tasks than high African American English speakers. African American English speakers have considerable knowledge of Standard American English forms, but the dialectal mismatch causes difficulty in applying them. Ensuring that African American English speakers develop phonological awareness skills will set them up for success for developing literacy skills. Parents should facilitate phonological awareness development before children attend school. Schools should accommodate African American English speakers by providing extra instructions for phonological awareness.
It It has been found that there is an inverse relationship between African American English dialect use and phonological awareness skills. This means that as African American English use decreases, phonological awareness skills and literacy outcomes increase. As we stated before, phonological awareness is the precursor to literacy skills and reading achievement. Early exposure to and production of standard American English can increase phonological awareness and reading skills by first and second grades. First graders can begin to note these differences in oral and written language between African American English and Standard American English, and they show a marked improvement because their phonological awareness, language skills, and literacy skills are developing in conjunction with Standard American English exposure and use rather than African American English use. This is during the critical period of literacy acquisition, so exposure and having a language-rich environment is imperative. A dialectal shift from African American English to Standard American English co-occurs with a child's developing knowledge of English orthography. This means that their reading skills improve, which includes phonological awareness, language, and literacy skills, which are developing in conjunction with Standard American English exposure. Early reading instruction should be promoted at school and in the home environments. However, this is more common among mainstream American English-speaking middle-income families, so speakers of African American English tend to score lower on assessments and chronically suffer in terms of academic achievement. Therefore, acquiring literacy skills early and becoming a strong reader are positive predictors and indicators on receiving higher scores and achieving literacy and academic success in the future.